Alright, welcome guys. Today I'm going to be doing a tour of my home library. Alright, so I wanted to do a bookshelf tour, and this probably isn't the best time of day to do a bookshelf tour. I feel like it's more of a cozy evening type of video, and I am doing this when it's still daylight. But yeah, I'm kind of excited to share with you guys this tour. Basically, I converted my home office into a library slash den. It is not complete 100%. It is not perfect. It's still a work in progress, as with everything in the house. I feel like every room in the house, every part of the house is always a work in progress. I'm constantly finding decor that I like better, or ways of arranging the furniture that I like better. I'm always coming upon new antique or vintage items that I want to welcome into my home. Getting into classic literature is something I've wanted to do for a really long time. We don't have a TV anymore. I sold the TV a year and a half ago, something like that, because we just never used it. And I replaced it with a large thrifted bookshelf that was downstairs in my living room. And I also got a electric piano, and I wanted to learn how to play piano. And I ended up not being happy with the electric piano, so I got rid of that and ended up getting a tall upright piano, which I love. It's beautiful. I painted it like an antique white color, and it just looks beautiful in the living room, and I'm slowly learning to play. So we don't have TV in the house. We just don't watch it. If we want to watch something, we can always stream it on the computer. Yeah, I'm not somebody to sit there and like binge watch TV shows or anything like that. And yeah, my daughter doesn't really watch it, and when my partner's here, if he and I want to watch a movie, we'll just download it. So I'm getting rid of the TV, which was sort of an eyesore. A big black screen in the middle of the wall, which really didn't go with anything else in my house, was just a natural change in my home that is very welcome. And I wanted to get more into reading, and for a long time I didn't think I had the time to read, but really I did have the time. I just was not prioritizing reading. Reading classics was something I was really behind on. We did, of course, read some classics in high school, and when I was in university, I didn't take very many lit classes, but we read like Edgar Allan Poe and stuff like that. And then in university, it was all like scientific and geared toward nursing, because that's what my degree is in. So yeah, I feel like classic lit is just an area I was so behind on, and I was really inspired to start reading classic literature. And as you guys probably know, if you watch my channel, or if it's your first time here, hi, I love like antique and vintage things. I also am just super turned off by modernity in general. Contemporary novels, contemporary houses, contemporary music, contemporary ideas. I just don't feel like I belong in this era in history. I love like old Victorian style houses. I love like the Regency era, the Edwardian era. I especially love books that are set in the 1800s, pretty much any time throughout the 1800s, but the mid probably to late is like my favorite. I'm still very much getting used to like finding out what I love, what books I love, what genres I love. But one theme I have noticed is that pretty much the newer the book, or the more contemporary, the less I like it. So I don't know. I also don't like a lot of contemporary like TV shows. A lot of what is considered mainstream, I think it's kind of despicable, a lot of it. I think a lot of it is just disturbing, dramatic. A lot of it is just for shock value. It's like, how much more liberal can we get? How much more sexualized can it be? How much more over the top and shocking can it be? How much can we show on screen while still letting it be legal? Essentially, nothing is really sacred anymore. Nothing is really wholesome anymore, it feels like. So for some context, I was born in the mid 80s, and so I guess I'm a millennial. That makes me a millennial. But yeah, I have been trying to live a more analog lifestyle. I have really filled my home with a lot of thrifted and antique items. I don't really buy anything brand new anymore. Everything I get is thrifted or antique. If I can find what I'm looking for, if I can't, then I will get something new. But yeah, I've just been loving like welcoming these things into my world, and I've been very inspired by, I guess, just like older things and older houses. And that is my dream, is to, once things have changed a little bit in my life, because right now we can't really make too many changes, just like the way things are in life at the moment. My daughter's in high school and things like that, but eventually I want to literally move out to like the countryside, a tiny town, like a village or a hamlet, and live in a old, affordable, Victorian style character home that's at least 100 years old. I want wallpaper on the walls. I want original flooring. I want the original creaky doors. I want the old brass knobs, or the old like crystal knobs. I want creepy crawl spaces. I want long, flowy, billowy curtains that smell like an old woman's attic. The older the better, the more character the better, the less stimulation the better. I don't want things that beep at me. I don't need a toaster that like beeps at me and tells me what the temperature is outside and all of those things. I really dislike the direction that AI is going in. I'm just really turned off in general by like the state of the world and the direction the world's going in. I think we've reached a precipice where it's too much now. It's too much stimulation. It's too digitalized, it's too loud, it's too overstimulating and too liberal, really. Like, not that I'm not for people's rights, of course I am, but I think you guys understand what I'm saying. I think we've just really fallen off track in general as a society, and I think that's part of the nostalgia, and I'm kind of along with the group of people who wants to get off of social media and kind of wants to go back to an old T9 flip phone or even a landline. Just like I've gotten out of the habit of like carrying my cell phone with me from room to room, things like that. So that's just a little snippet, I will say, of my ideology and how I feel and how I'm living my life, and some context for you guys to preface this video. And yeah, I want to take you through and give you a tour of my my little home library. I call it my den. It is obviously very brightly lit right now, so it's not very romantic or cozy. So it's kind of bright, maybe not the best time of day, but at least you'll be able to see the books very clearly and the decor and stuff like that. And I do spend a lot of time in here in the evenings. My favorite thing to do now is make a cup of tea. I usually make chamomile in the evenings, although I'm also a huge fan of peppermint and lots of like fruity herbal teas. I love just coming and sitting in here and knitting, which is amazing. It's been so rewarding and so relaxing. I also want to learn to crochet, but I just went with knitting first, so that's where I'm at. And I love to read. Without too much further ado, let's get into it. I can share other details about things as we go. This is probably going to be a bit of a long video, so please make yourself something to drink. And if you love bookshelf tours as much as I do, I hope that you'll enjoy today's video. I have a really hard time finding bookshelf tours by people who I resonate with or feel like I jive with or have the same vibes as, because I feel like a lot of bookshelf tours are like very young and like book talk inspired. A lot of contemporary, a lot of spicy fantasy, which is not my cup of tea, or at least so far I haven't discovered that it is. And so yeah, I feel like if you want to resonate with someone like me who maybe you have more in common with, maybe we're closer age. I don't have like a lot of book talk recommendations. I don't watch book talk, but I hope that you will enjoy this video. So currently I am drinking some Tim Hortons coffee in my thrifted zinnia flower mug, which I just love. I think it's so pretty. So I guess we'll start out with this area here. So this area is not perfect. I'm not 100% happy with it, but it will do for now. I feel like the mirror is a little big for the fireplace, but I had the mirror sitting around and I was like, it needed something to like anchor the space. So first things first, the fireplace is an electric fireplace, obviously. It actually looks lovely in the evening. It puts off a beautiful warm light. It's a little hard to see right now because it's daylight. It also does put out heat, so you can like change the temperature and it will put out nice warm heat, which is amazing because when I sit in here in the evening, especially if it's really cold out, it's obviously just the start of spring, but if it's a really cold evening, I will just close the vents in here actually, and I'll just turn this on, and it just feels a little bit more authentic, like you're really sitting in a cool room in front of a fireplace, which really gives me those cozy Victorian vibes, as if I'm actually in an old house that has old boiler heat or an old actual like stove. And when I was a child, fun fact, I spent a lot of time on my grandma and grandpa's acreage, and they had an antique cottage on their land. But in this antique cottage, they had old bedding and old beds and an old antique crib and an old stove, and they had an old wood burning stove, and that was how we actually warmed the cottage. And we would have sleepovers outside in the cottage with my grandma. I have such fond memories of when I was a child. We would have candles and lanterns lit, and I remember the moths flying toward the flames and like toward the lanterns, and we didn't really care, even though I'm grossed out by moths. It didn't bother us because it just felt very like cathartic and natural, and it was freezing and it was so cold, but it didn't matter because we had the wood burning stove lit, and then Grandma would bundle us up in these woolen blankets, these very, very old antique woolen blankets. And we kept warm, you know, and there is nothing cozier than being in a very, very cold place, but keeping warm with things that are close to you, like a fireplace that's close to you, a wool blanket. It's akin to camping and huddling around a fire when you're camping. And so that's kind of the vibes that I wanted to have in my little reading den, reading nook libraries. On top of it, I put this thrifted like table runner / tablecloth / doily thing that I got from the Salvation Army. The top is just wooden, which is actually very pretty and very charming, but I thought that this would give it just like a shabby chic kind of charm. And then I have a vase of flowers, and then I have the book that I am currently reading, which is Louisa May Alcott, Little Women. And then I have just a couple of candles, and this is a thrifted little vase, and then I just had put a candle in it, turned it into a candle holder. This is unfortunately not secondhand, but it was something I had laying around, and I have to say I actually much prefer the color of like cream candles versus white. So going forward, I'm only going to get the cream candles or the beeswax candles. And I also really like to thrift a lot of my candles. So I have like a whole box downstairs of tall, tapered, ivory colored candles. And then whenever I go to the secondhand store, that's always an area that I go and check out, is the candle section. Yeah, that's my little top of the fireplace. And then in here, I actually keep a little container with some lighters. And then I have the remote as well for the fireplace in there. And back here, I also have a little speaker, because sometimes when I'm in this room, I like to actually play fireplace sounds. So on Spotify, I downloaded 10 hours of crackling fireplace. And so when I turn it on, it gives me the crackling fireplace vibes. That's the only downside of this fireplace, is it doesn't make crackling noises. Back here, I have one of those tabletop lap pillow things to put your book on or your laptop. This chair, unfortunately, is not thrifted, but I've had this for a really long time. It's just a really pretty tufted chair that I got from Wayfair, like probably 4 or 5 years ago. Very, very comfortable. I just love sitting in this chair. I've been using it in the living room for a really long time, and it was the perfect chair to invite into my nook. Now, I did have 2 chairs up here. I had one for me and one for my boyfriend, but it felt very cluttered in here. I still might add another chair. It's just that the way the room is shaped, there's not really a good place to put the chair. Yeah, so that's that. And then on top of the chair, I have a blanket, which I'm not going to be purchasing any more blankets because I want to start making my own knit blankets or crochet blankets. And that's actually going to be the very first project that I make with my knitting. And then in the back, I have a thrifted lamp. I actually just got this yesterday or the day before on Facebook Marketplace. I don't know what shape you would call that lampshade, but I love that it just gives off a warm, comfortable light. I always go for like the soft white lights in places like this because I want it to be nice and cozy. You guys really need to see it in here in the evening when the light is just coming from the fireplace, the candles, and the lamp. It is so ridiculously cozy in here. This area rug was thrifted from kind of an estate sale. It was a lady in town who'd passed away and her daughter was selling all of her stuff. And so it is I think it's a wool rug, and I just love the colors. It's so pretty. And I have another rug that I bought from that same lady downstairs in front of my piano. I'll insert a clip if I can find it, but it's absolutely beautiful. I love the colors. I love the fringe. I'm obsessed with these kind of old rugs. And so it's really nice because when I sit here in the evening and knit or read and I have the fireplace on, the dogs will often come and lay up here and curl up and either chew a stick or just take a nap. And it's so comfortable and cozy. And then to the left, I've got some curtains on the window. They're a little hard to see from this angle, but they are lace curtains. They are thrifted. And then beside the chair, I have a table, and this is just a little white pedestal table or a little cream pedestal table. And then on top, I have a thrifted doily, which I got from the Salvation Army. And then on top of it, I just have my notebook. And this is actually the notebook that I use to journal. I really do enjoy journaling. I like getting my thoughts down on paper, and it just helps me kind of organize my mind a little bit. And then I obviously always have my drink on the table as well when I'm reading. Beside that, I have a little wicker basket, but I just wanted something to keep my knitting supplies in. So I just have a doily in here just lining the bottom of the container. And then I have a little pencil case. This was actually a gift from a coworker, and it's got my scissors and a ruler and some pins and things like that. And then obviously in here I have all of my yarn and all of my knitting needles. And I also have a cross stitch template because I want to learn to cross stitch as well. I want to do cross stitch. I want to start embroidering. And I'm also going to teach myself how to crochet. So this is my little knitting project. I love knitting, you guys. Knitting is such a good way to slow down your mind. And there's a lot of studies as well that show that it's really beneficial for your brain because it forces you to use both of your hands. It forces you to use both sides of your brain, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And it also is like meditative because it causes you to focus on one thing completely. It's kind of like it quietens the mind, and it's akin to meditation. But what I like to do when I knit, I often will have a cup of tea, and sometimes I'll have like a documentary just quietly going on in the background, or I will just listen to like cozy jazz music or something like that. But knitting is something you can kind of do mindlessly, but at the same time it quietens the mind because it's so repetitive, and at the same time you do have to pay attention to what you're doing, and I just enjoy it so much. And so the first thing I'm going to make is a blanket. I kind of didn't really have a plan when I started. I didn't know what I was doing, so I just started making squares, and I have a whole bunch of squares here made. They're not all the same size, obviously, so I don't know how I'm going to. It's going to be like a very, and this one's kind of messy. I kind of screwed that square up. That was one of my first squares I ever did. And this is not a perfect square, it's a rectangle. But anyways, yeah, some of the squares are more perfect than others, but I'm essentially going to make a blanket. And after I have all my squares done, I'm going to knit them all together, and they don't have to be perfect. And yeah, so I just find it so relaxing. Not bad for a beginner, but I'm definitely getting better. And yeah, I just love it. And I love the feel of like holding the knitting needles. I've got like plastic knitting needles. These are thrifted and vintage. Then I've got like some metal ones, more plastic ones from Walmart, and then I've got a set of wooden ones. Beside that, I have a thrifted table, and I think it's a table, but you can use it as a plant stand. And it's just a really nice wooden thrifted table that I got on Marketplace. I have a thrifted doily from the Salvation Army, and then I have a plant, and the plant is just from Walmart, and it's just a marble and jade pothos. So I'm hoping that eventually it'll get nice and big and it'll start trellising down. And then I would like to put it on top of the bookshelf and have it trellis down over the sides of the bookshelf. In fact, I feel like I might go to the plant store later today and get another plant, because I would really like one on top of the bookshelf, or even like a smaller one that I could like decorate the shelf with. But I really wanted a plant in here. So on the wall above that, I have a piece of cross stitch art in a really pretty cream frame, and this was thrifted. All right, so now getting into the actual bookshelf. So this is actually 3 bookshelves lined up together. These are not the super popular IKEA Billy bookshelves. I don't have an IKEA near me, and I don't know if I can get those things ordered to me. So these ones, my only gripe is I wish they were a little taller. They were the tallest ones advertised. I just got these from Amazon. I just looked up Billy IKEA bookshelf dupe, and these came up, but these are not super tall. So yeah, they have 6 shelves each. I do have enough room that if I was to push them over one way or the other, I would have enough room for another shelf. So that is something I'm toying with, is actually ordering a 4th shelf, and that way I can have wall-to-wall books, because that was something I kind of envisioned. But I also do wish that they went up a little higher. Eventually, like, these are kind of temporary, relatively inexpensive bookshelves. Eventually, when I have my forever home, a house, I will probably invest in some better bookshelves, or ideally even have them built in. So yeah, but as you can see, the bookshelves are not full of books, which is good. I still have some room to grow because I'm always discovering new books that I might want to read. And books is the only thing I really buy these days anymore. I'm not really buying perfume. I've been buying knitting supplies and books. I'm not buying makeup. So where do I begin with the bookshelves? Where do I begin? I guess just a couple notes before I get into it. So I do have what some people might consider to be very like stereotypical books. Like I have a lot of stereotypical classics or very popular, more well-known classics, but I definitely do want to broaden my horizons and welcome more books into my collection, especially classic literature. As I shared in the beginning, I'm not super into contemporary literature. I do really love fiction. I have found I never used to read fiction. I would only read self-help and productivity books. And I will say that although there is a lot of value to be found in self-help, productivity, those kind of things like Atomic Habits or How to Win Friends and Influence People, Wayne Dyer type of books, Eckhart Tolle, a lot of those books, they're great, but they leave me still feeling a little bit hollow. It's sort of like akin to, okay, now you're super productive. Now you've figured out how to find inner peace. But then what? Where is the floweriness? Where is the character? Where is the building of your soul? Where is the beauty and the experience and things that touch your heart and change you as a person and change your perspective and grow you? And where's the mystery? Where's the adventure? So those things are not necessarily found in self-help and nonfiction. And I kind of read like so much nonfiction in university because I took a nursing degree. I'm kind of over science. I'm kind of over it. I want to go back in time now. So that's what I have found that I really like in my books. So I have overwhelmingly a lot of fiction. There are a couple of genres that I haven't really put my toes into yet. I don't really know if I'm going to enjoy them. Things like fantasy. Although I do have to say that I have enjoyed quite a few fantasy TV series and or movies. I've never seen Lord of the Rings, which is probably a good thing. I've never seen Harry Potter. I've never read Harry Potter. So it's going to be a completely new experience for me. I have yet to read The Hobbit. I'm really looking forward to reading The Hobbit. And I'm also kind of glad that I haven't seen those movies because it's going to not ruin the experience of the book for me. Fantasy is an area that like part of me thinks I might really hate, and I might think it's just ridiculous and cheesy and unimportant and unnecessary and unrelatable, obviously. But I might really like it. So we'll find out. Another genre that I like in movies is like thriller, horror, suspense. I love a good creepy horror movie, especially with paranormal or like haunted houses. I also have found that I love really gothic, a little bit dark, on the edge of your seat, a little bit creepy vibes. For example, Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier or Jane Eyre. I love those like little bit cold, autumnal, Gothic vibes in a book. I also love them in movies. Give me a movie with an old haunted Victorian mansion and I'm there for it. I just love it. So I do find that that is bleeding over into my taste in books as well. I'm not a huge romance person. I'm not one to read like a spicy romance book. It's just not my cup of tea. I'm never going to sit on the beach and read like beach reads or whatever. Haven't gotten into Emily Henry, don't think I'm going to. Haven't gotten into Colleen Hoover, don't think I'm going to. Like those type, if you guys have any recommendations for me, thank you. I would love them. But those are the type of books that really I just don't like. I read a contemporary young adult novel a year and a half ago and I hated it. Like it was okay. I read it, but it was I just really did not like it. I would never have watched a TV show like that, and I'll never buy another book that I think is like that because I just don't enjoy it at all, especially when it's modern. So yeah, that being said, I do feel like I have like a pretty well-rounded beginner's library in terms of I have most of the most popular classics. I have a lot of like bucket list books that people say are absolutely in your top, like you must read these books, best books of all time, those kind of things. A lot of very highly rated books, a lot of very highly rated classic literature, but I know that there's a lot that I'm missing. So when I say I feel like I have a very stereotypical collection, that's what I mean. But I also feel like I have a little bit of everything, and I also have a little bit of contemporary lit as well that I will dip my toes into and see how I feel, but I'm kind of keeping that section of my library a little smaller because I just have a feeling I'm not going to enjoy those books. I definitely feel like the longer ago a book was written, the more I tend to like it. I guess that's where I'll leave the commentary and the context and the prologue here for my library. In terms of the decor, it's obviously not like perfectly decorated. This was just the best I could do the other night. I have it organized into basically genre, and then within genre, I do try to keep authors together as well where I can. And then a lot of it is just sort of like where I felt like it fit. So some of it might not make sense to other people, but in my head, it felt like it went there. And sometimes I literally just put it there because I thought it looked pretty there. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into my tour, and we'll just start and we'll just get into it. So I want to start out with the bottom shelves because they're kind of my least favorite shelves. I did put my favorite books at the top, so let's just get these ones out of the way. And when I say favorite books, I mean favorite perceived books, because most of these are TBR. Some of them I've already read, but most of them are TBR. But they're kind of the ones I'm least excited to read or whatever. But I wanted something on the bottom shelves to balance out the bookshelf. So on the bottom left shelf, I have Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. I'm probably going to butcher some of these names, so please forgive me. But this is a book that I actually started reading a number of years ago and never finished. At that time in my life, I was not really into reading, and I definitely just was not making time for reading. So this section here is kind of like nonfiction / self-help / a little bit spiritual, memoirs, that kind of thing. The next one here is Girl Interrupted by Susanna Kaysen. Beside that, I have Elizabeth Gilbert, Eat, Pray, Love. I don't know what this is about, but it's a pretty popular book. The next one is a thrifted book that I got from Value Village, actually, and this is by W. Bruce Cameron, and this is A Dog's Purpose. I think this book is going to make me cry because I have 2 dogs, and yeah, I just can't imagine life without my dogs. And I'm sure it's going to touch on the fact that dogs don't live very long, like in comparison to humans. And I think I don't know, I'm kind of dreading reading that book. The next one is from Deepak Chopra, and this is The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. I told you guys I'm not really into self-help as much anymore. The next one is A Stolen Life by J.C. Duggard, kind of random to have here amongst all of my other spiritual kind of books. This is apparently a really hard read, but a really good read. Next, we have Charles Darwin, The Origin of Species. I just felt like this was a must-have. I don't know when I will read it, but I was like, I feel like I should have that book because it's a classic. Then we have C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity. This is actually an excellent book, and I highly recommend it for people who are wanting to believe in God but find it difficult to get past the scientific aspects of religion. The next one I have is from Darcy Lang, and this is Lead the 90%. I actually got this because of my position at work right now. I thought that this would be a nice book to help me become a better leader at work. The next one is Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. This is a super old book. I saw it at a secondhand bookstore and I couldn't say no. I feel like I'm forever realizing and learning how different men and women are from each other, and yet we can't live without each other. The next one is The Book of Secrets by Deepak Chopra as well. And then the next one is The Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Wolleben. Now, this book I actually just read recently, and I got about halfway to 3/4 of the way through and I DNF'd it. I will probably end up decluttering this book. I don't intend to declutter many books. If I like a book, or if I feel like it's an important book, or it's a vintage, or it's classic, or it's part of a collection, I don't plan to declutter them, but I also don't want to hold on to books if I really, really just did not enjoy reading them. And this was an okay book. It was like really highly acclaimed, but I found it to be a little boring. It just went so much into the actual science of trees, and I don't enjoy reading science. This next shelf beside that one has just some notebooks and also my pencil case. And in my pencil case, I keep a whole bunch of highlighters and pens that are good for annotating, and also some annotation tabs. I love annotating books if it has like beautiful language or things I want to come back and look at again, or just like really beautiful prose that I want to reference again or share with people. Anything that is sort of sticks out to me or stands out to me and I find very special, I will annotate. Sometimes I don't annotate. I find that a lot of contemporary fiction isn't worth annotating. There's just nothing deep in it. There's nothing like profound in it. Very, very rarely do I find like a contemporary book that has something I feel is worthy of annotation. This one here we have is The Book of Negroes. I've never read it before, but I heard that it was a really good book, and I believe it was made into a movie. Then I also have the Toni Morrison books. So I have Beloved, I have Song of Solomon. I have The Bluest Eye, which this book I actually did already read as a teenager. Not the whole thing though, but I read this a long time ago. I think I was like 17 when I read this, or 16, and it was really hard to read. And I feel like even then I really enjoyed it, and I think it would be just amazing to read now, being that I'm a little bit older. Then I have The Book Thief from Marcus Zusak. And I haven't read this one yet, but I heard so many great things about it, and I thought this was just like a must read. Then I have also All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Dewar, Dewar, I think is how you pronounce it. Heard this was an amazing book as well. And then I also have The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini, if I'm saying that properly. So very excited to read that book as well. But I will say that that is also one genre that I'm very, very fascinated with, is anything World War II. Like, two of my favorite movies are Schindler's List and The Pianist. I just love them. I think because the events that happened actually took place. The fact that it's dystopian, but it actually occurred and not that long ago, makes it just absolutely fascinating to me. On the next shelf to the right, so the last bottom shelf in the bookshelves, I have all of the Harry Potter books. I got these secondhand for $25 from the Salvation Army. So like I said, I've never read Harry Potter, but I'm hoping, oh, there's a bookmark. I'm hoping that I will like this book. I don't know, everyone who reads Harry Potter ends up loving them, so I feel like that's eventually just something I need to read. I feel like it's a series I just have to get under my belt at some point. Okay, now I can get off of that super uncomfortable, awkward position laying on the floor looking at the books, and I can actually sit. And this is the second shelves of my unit. So yeah, so this is like a little bit more, most of these are more modern or more contemporary or more recently written. Some of them, I guess, are classic. A lot of them are very highly recommended or have won awards or things like that. And some of them, a couple of them are just like a little bit more random that I just happened to see at the store and thought they might be nice. This is The Covenant of Water by Abraham Verghese. I hope I'm saying that properly. I heard that this is just an amazing book, and I'm super, super excited to read this one. I really want books that I'm excited to read. I don't want to buy books just because, oh, that looks like it might be kind of cute. I read The Pumpkin Spice Cafe last year, you guys. Please don't recommend me books like that, because I just find them so surface level and uninspiring and uninteresting. I also don't like comedy, by the way. I don't like romantic comedies. That's actually my least favorite genre of TV show or movie as well. So beside that, I have Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. I hope I'm saying that properly. This apparently is an amazing, like a really, really good book. So I'm excited to read that one. This one here is from Miko Kawakami, if I'm saying that properly. And this is Heaven. You guys, I probably will declutter this one. I read it. It was okay. Again, it's a little bit more of a contemporary book. It was a good book though. I think I rated it like 3.5 or 4 stars. It was an interesting story that kept me reading. It was hard to read. It has to do with bullying. Lots of trigger warnings. It reminded me a lot of like middle school. I didn't have a great experience in middle school. Just like not my kind of book, not the type of book I like to read. It was okay, I guess, because as a child I was bullied, so like not as badly as these people were, but I lived through that experience. So I feel like for somebody who was never bullied, this would be like eye-opening and important, but for me, like, I've already got my own trauma. Thank you very much. This is by Haruki Murakami, but this is called After Dark. I hope I like this one better. I think I'm going to. This one seems a little bit more like philosophical, so I'm hoping I really enjoy it. Next, I have A Gift from the Sea. The next one is If Trees Could Talk, Lessons from the Wisdom of the Woods. The next one is by Chinua Achebe, and this is Things Fall Apart. Super highly recommended book. I think that this is like on the reading list of a lot of literature classes, English classes. I have never read this, but I think it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to reading that one. Then I have one that's kind of like not really my vibe, honestly. This is Philippa Gregory, The Other Boleyn Girl. I know that there is a movie or a TV show about this. I haven't seen it yet, but I really love also things that take place in like medieval times. I love the idea of like castles and nobility and aristocracy. Next one is The Sixth Wife. I kind of just bought it because it was pretty and had a pink spine, and It's also about nobility and castles and just kind of sounded like something I'd like to watch in a movie. Next, I have The Letter by Richard Paul Evans. And I don't know, I've never heard of this book before. Again, I just saw it in the secondhand store. The spine was really pretty and it sounds like it might be an okay, just like winter read, just something like kind of easy, you know? Next, we have Daniel Mason, The Northwoods. This apparently is an amazing book, and apparently it takes place in a cabin in the woods. It's essentially like multiple different families over time end up living in the same cabin, and it like takes you through the lives of all these people, and the cabin stays the same, but you like meet all these different families. And apparently it's like very cozy. The next one, this one, I honestly don't know if I'm gonna like it. This is the least, like, this is probably the only book of this type you will see on my bookshelf, and this is The December Market by Rayanne Thane. It sounds like a romance, and yeah, a second shot at romance. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna like this. I don't even know why I bought it. But I was like, whatever, you know what? I should at least try it. I don't think I'm gonna like it, but I should try it just to see. Maybe the Pumpkin Spice Cafe ruined it for me, and maybe I need to give it a second chance, and maybe it'll be something I actually enjoy. I don't know. Next, I have The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton. The next one is The Nest. The next one is A Man Called Uva by Frederick Backman. I heard that this was a really, really good book, essentially about a man who sort of wants to no longer live, but he kind of comedically, I think, keeps finding reasons to live, and that premise just sounded really interesting to me, although I think it might be kind of hard to read and maybe a little bit sad. I'm not sure, but we will see. It came very highly recommended from anybody who's read it. Next, we have The English Patient. Next, we have A Year in Provence, and this is by Peter Mayle, and this just has major like Italian and Parisian cozy vibes. As this witty and warm-hearted account, Peter Mayle tells what it is like to realize a long cherished dream and actually move into a 200-year-old stone farmhouse in a remote country. It transports us to the earthly pleasures of provincial life and lets us live vicariously at a tempo governed by seasons, not by days. The next one is Water for Elephants. I've heard great things about this, and I know that they made it into a movie as well. I have never seen the movie, and I just thought that maybe it might be a good read, so I grabbed it. The next one is Memoirs of a Geisha. Same kind of deal here. Heard it was good. Know that there's a movie about it. Haven't read it. Haven't seen the movie. Thought it might be a good read. So that's kind of what this shelf is for the most part. The only books I'm actually really, really excited to read from this shelf are The Covenant of Water, Never Let Me Go, Things Fall Apart, Northwoods, and A Man Called Uva. Other than that, the other ones are kind of like, they're just like, they're books that hopefully might be kind of good, and I just felt like they might be okay. So yeah, I do have other books I'm much more excited about, but those are on the higher shelves. These ones actually I'm really excited to read. So some of these are a little bit more classic or written longer ago. Some of them are a little bit more modern, but a lot of these I think are actually going to be amazing, but I'm kind of leaving them until later. Some of them specifically because they are so highly acclaimed that I feel like if I was to read them first, it might ruin a lot of other reads for me. So starting off with very popular Sylvia Plath, The Bell Jar. Believe it or not, I have never read The Bell Jar. I know it's required reading actually for a lot of people in school. This one I think is going to be hard to read and difficult. And I, being a person who like has enough trauma from my own past, I had a very dysfunctional childhood. I had a really hard time in high school. I lived below the poverty line pretty much until I was like a young adult, till I had my own job and moved out and everything else. And I struggled with a lot of things growing up. And so I have a lot of triggers. Like I definitely am somebody who is not going to read The Little Life or A Little Life because I don't need my eyes to be opened. They've been opened, if that makes sense. So, which is actually why I'm kind of nervous to read some of Toni Morrison. But yeah, so I feel like this book might have some trigger warnings and I don't know what those are, but I definitely do want to read it at some point just because it is such a highly acclaimed book. The next one is The Silent Patient. The next one we have is Watership Down by Richard Adams. Every person who reads this book says it is just so good, and I'm so excited to read it. Apparently it is about a community of rabbits who is forced to leave their home because of, I'm guessing, like humans who are building on the land or doing whatever they're doing. And I guess it's just like so beautifully written and told from the point of view of the rabbit. Just like get into the mind of the rabbits and are with them as they're trying to like find a new home. The next one is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I don't have to say too much about this. It's very popular. I haven't read it yet. This is a book that a lot of people attribute to their getting into reading. Like, they weren't readers until they read this book. I'm not really big into like Greek mythology or anything like that. We did take a little bit of Greek mythology in school, but I can't say that I'm like super interested in it or anything like that, but maybe I will become so after I read some of these books. But yeah, so this one I'm going to leave for a little bit later. The next one, this one's kind of a bucket list book. This is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Again, this is so many people's top book of all time. A lot of people don't like it because they don't like some of the context and what happens in the book. They also don't like that it's confusing. Apparently, there's a lot of people with the same names. So I'm kind of like nervous to read this book, and I don't want to start with it because I think it might ruin reading for me if I start with it. I'm kind of still just getting my feet wet, and I think this is going to be a difficult book to read. So I'm just saving it for later, even though I do think it's going to be a very good book. The next one is Susanna Clarke's Piranesi. And apparently this is a great book. Like, everyone who reads it just says it's so good and so interesting. The next one is Ian McEwan, Atonement. Now, I did start reading this book on my Kobo. When I had my Kobo, I wasn't really into it, but I don't like reading on a electronic device. I like real books. So I think that if I get back into this book on like a paper version of this book, I think I'll actually really like it. But this is definitely such a highly acclaimed novel as well. The next one is Pachinko by Minion Lee. This one, I know a lot of people love like the first 3/4 of the book, and then the last quarter people say it felt very random or like rushed. So I'm really excited to read this book, even though, hopefully, sometimes I wish people wouldn't spoil endings, like, because now I'm anticipating that I'm not going to like the ending. The next one is The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. This book, again, super highly acclaimed. Everyone who reads it says it's just great. It's a book about books. It sounds very cozy. It sounds very autumnal. This one I got secondhand. I do try, by the way, to thrift all of my books if I can, but sometimes there's a book that I really, really want and it's not readily available at the secondhand store. But I try not to get books from Amazon if I can. I prefer to go to like an actual bookstore. The next one came highly recommended to me actually from a lot of my followers on Instagram, and this is Freshwater for Flowers by Valerie Perrin. I hope that I like it. It sounds again like it's going to be kind of sad. I don't know what this is all about, but I know that it's about a funeral home. I know that it's about graveyards. I know that it's about death, and that's about all I know. And I also work in hospice. I'm a hospice nurse, so I don't know how I'm going to feel about this. And the next one is Tara Westover's Educated. Again, I don't need to say anything about this one. It's about a family who keeps their children living like underground, and they don't go to like public school. That's kind of, and then I think the person, like the main character of this book eventually leaves. Yeah, goes to school. Yeah, I think a lot of you guys have probably read this book. I heard it's just great. So I'm really, really looking forward to reading that one. So that is my more contemporary, more modern, in a lot of cases, books that I am very excited to read and think are going to be great, or I'm nervous to read. And then coming over to the second shelf on the right. So on the bottom, we had the Harry Potter series. The shelf above is still fantasy, and the shelf above that is also fantasy. So I kind of kept my fantasy section right here. So on the second shelf, I have my one Sarah J. Maas book, and that is A Court of Thorns and Roses. I don't know if this is going to be my cup of tea. I'm not into spicy fairy stuff. It's just not something that appeals to me. If I was a teenager, I might think that sounded pretty cool, but at this point in my life, I don't really want to read like fairy love stories. I don't know. But I know that this is such a ridiculously popular series, and I think she's actually a pretty good writer. And I did kind of flip through a few pages and read a few excerpts, and I do like her writing. I think she sounds like a really good writer. And people seem to just love this series. So I was like, you know what, let me get the first one and see what I think. If I don't like it, I don't have to get any of the other ones. Although that being said, if I did find a trilogy or a series secondhand, I'd probably get the whole thing just to have it. And some people don't like the first book, but they love like the third book in the series. So if you have read ACOTAR, as they call it, please let me know your thoughts. But so far, I don't think fairy like love stories are going to be for me, but we'll see. Then we also have the entire Game of Thrones series, but these were secondhand as well. I couldn't say no. It was $20 for the entire set, and again at my local secondhand store. These obviously have been read, and the pages are so like soft, and yeah, they just smell great. They smell like secondhand books, and I love that. And I think these are going to be just, if I ever do decide to read this series, they're just going to be so cozy to hold and like cozy up with a blanket in the fall. And then beside that, I have my very first piece of decor, which is a clock. And then beside that, I have my 2 J.R.R. Tolkien books, which I have never read. I have The Hobbit, and I have The Fellowship of the Ring, and I'm really excited to read these. I'm kind of glad that I've never seen Lord of the Rings. And this is like a series, right? I think that's like a series. So I kind of want the whole series because I think I will actually love this series. I've read like the first couple pages, and it's just so so well written and cozy. There's like a coziness about it, and it just feels like magical, you know? And then this is The Hobbit, obviously. And this is like required reading for people in high school, middle school. So I don't know what happened in my school, but I never read this, and it just sounds so insanely cozy and comforting, and I just really, really want to read it. So I'm actually going to change the order because I think I should read The Hobbit first and then The Fellowship of the Ring. Okay, now thankfully we are high enough on the bookshelf that I can quit holding the camera in my hand and be less wobbly. And now we get into the books that I'm really excited to read / like just love having on my bookshelf. Okay, so we'll start off with this one because it's right in the front. This is William Makepeace Thackeray's Vanity Fair. So I actually got this book secondhand at a thrift store, and I just loved the cover of this book. And I heard that this was also a really great classic. It is a pretty chunky book. I don't know when I'm going to get to it. This shelf has a lot of what I would call my bucket list books, or the books that I think are going to be really difficult. And it also has all of my Dickens. And I'll get into that in a moment. We also have Victor Hugo's Les Miserables. This is a bucket list book because it's huge, and there's also a lot of French in it, and I don't speak a lick of French, and it just is extremely intimidating to me, but I definitely do want to read it at some point. And I also really like that edition. It's a very pretty edition. I have my other Victor Hugo, which is Notre Dame de Paris, and this is obviously the Hunchback of Notre Dame. I'm actually really excited to read this one. I actually watch a girl on YouTube. Her channel's called Petticoats and Prose, and this is her favorite book, like one of her favorite books of all time, if not her favorite book. And I'm so excited actually to read this book. And then we get into Dickens. I have only read part of one Dickens. So here we have Great Expectations. I hope I really like it. I have started Oliver Twist, and I DNF'd Oliver Twist partway through just because I wasn't really into the characters. I'll talk more about that in a moment. But yeah, I hope I like Great Expectations. A lot of people say that they love it. I want to get more Dickens books, but I will admit that his writing style is not my favorite. He's very, very wordy, but a brilliant writer. But yeah, just very, very wordy. I also have Oliver Twist. So as you can see, I'm partway through this one. I've read about 40%, and I also annotated. And the thing about Oliver Twist, I will say, is I don't really love the storyline. His writing, like I said, is not really 100% for me. He's very, very wordy, huge run-on sentences. Like there'll be like a whole page that's just one sentence. I find it difficult to read in that sense. The language is okay. The language is easy to understand. It's fairly accessible. I do know that Oliver Twist is one of his earlier works that he did, and people say that his later works are better. So I feel like the first one he did was the Pickwick Papers, which I also have, and then I think the second one he did was Oliver Twist. So I'm hoping that his later works I do enjoy more. I will finish this book. I just I was finding it a chore to read. I was finding I was just trying to read it just to get through it, just to say I read it. And that's not the experience I want to have with books. I feel like, especially because I'm so early on in my reading journey when it comes to classic lit, I definitely don't want to force myself to read books. So if I'm not enjoying them, or if I'm finding it a chore, I will just put it aside and come back later. The next one I think is his first ever works, and this is the Pickwick Papers. I do quite like these editions, whatever they are. I really like the colors. I like the vintage look of them. This is obviously the same like edition as the Vanity Fair book. That one I'm not super excited to read. This one I am actually looking forward to reading, and this is Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. I read the first little bit of this, and by the way, I've never actually seen the movie. Super popular, but I've never actually seen the movie. Maybe as a child a little bit, but I don't really remember what happens. I just know that it's about a Scrooge and the ghosts of Christmas past, and that's like all I remember. So yeah, so I am excited to read that one though, because I really like the writing in the first couple pages. I feel like when I read the first couple pages, I wanted to keep reading it. So yeah, I'm excited to read that one. The next one is another sort of bucket list book, and this is Cervantes' Don Quixote. The next one we have is Herman Melville's Moby Dick. A lot of people don't like this book because they say it's just like a very wordy discussion about whale anatomy, but also similar to The Old Man and the Sea by Hemingway, which I have read, by the way, but I no longer have it. The Old Man and the Sea is like very short and to the point and not super wordy, whereas Moby Dick is very, very wordy. But I did read the first page or so of this, and I have to say I relate to the character of the book talking about sometimes he just wants to like leave humanity behind and go out to the sea when he's just basically annoyed with people. He just like wants to get out on his boat and just go to sea. I'm like, me too, Herman, me too. Except I don't want to go to sea. I want to go to a little farmhouse with some chickens. Then I have two from Homer. I have the Odyssey and I have the Iliad. And these are two translations by Emily Wilson. Apparently these are really, really accessible, easy to understand translations, which is good for me because I find poetry, especially classic poetry, to be a little bit intimidating. I just feel like I should read them. I feel like I want them in my library. Okay, this shelf I really like. I like the way it looks, and I'm really excited for some of these books, and I have read one of the books on this shelf. So starting out with this one here, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I heard great things about this book, and when I read the synopsis, it sounded amazing. So I'm super, super excited to read this one. The next one is Circe by Madeline Miller. Again, I'm super excited to read this one as well. Again, I'm not super into Greek mythology, but the writing in this book sounds absolutely beautiful. The next one is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I have this book because obviously it's like so highly recommended. So many people say this is their favorite book of all time when I've looked at YouTube like book recommendations. So this is a book I'm going to leave for a bit. The next one I'm also super excited to read. This is Larry McMurtry's Lonesome Dove. I've heard amazing things about this book. At least it seems to be trending. And apparently it's about two like ranchers, I guess, who make their way across the US in like a cattle drive. But apparently it's just beautifully written, and the characters are very well done, and the dialogue is very well done, and I've heard great things about it, so I'm really excited to read that one. The next one is Pat Conroy's The Prince of Tides. Again, I just heard great things about this one. I don't really know what it's about. I read the first page of it, and I wanted to keep reading, so the next one I think is going to be really hard. Again, like maybe some trigger warning / family dysfunction. I'm a little bit nervous to read this one. It's Shuggie Bain by Douglas Stewart, and apparently it's about an alcoholic mother and her son, and I think like just dysfunctional living, but also the love between a mother and her son, and that's about all I really know about it. And I've heard a lot of people give this like rave reviews, so I'm kind of nervous about that one. I feel like it's going to be a little falling under the A Little Life category in terms of like traumatic and hard, and I don't love reading stuff like that, but I tend to like books that make me feel warm and cozy, but I also really love a good story, and I love something that sticks with you, so there's that. The next one is Claire Keegan's Small Things Like These. I've heard great things about this book. I know that there is a movie starring Cillian Murphy. My boyfriend and I tried to watch the movie. I didn't even know it was based off of a book, but we started watching the movie, and it was a little bit dry, and we ended up not finishing the movie. But I have heard that this is such a good book, and it's written, or it takes place around Christmas, so I think I will leave this one to closer to Christmas and then read it then. But I have read this book, and this is Foster by Claire Keegan. You guys, I really, really recommend this book. This is heartbreaking. It's sad. It was a really good book. I have tons of annotations. It's very short. These are just great little short like stories or novellas, but Claire Keegan can do so much in a small book. And this is essentially about a child who goes to live with a foster family. And that's all I'm going to say about it. You really, really connect with the characters, and it did make me cry. I cried like a baby at the end. Then I have a series here from Elena Ferrante. This is My Beautiful Friend, The Story of the Lost Child, Those Who Leave and Those Who Stay, and The Story of a New Name. And these are just so beautiful, so I wanted them sitting on my shelf like in succession, but look how pretty these books are, you guys. So this one here is My Brilliant Friend. These are super highly acclaimed books as well. Like everybody who's read them really, really recommends them. I've never read anything from Elena Ferrante, so very excited. But this is a series, again, I want to leave for a little bit later because, and it looks like very summery, like it looks very spring, summer. I kind of want to leave it maybe until summertime to read. So that's My Brilliant Friend. This is The Story of the Lost Child, Those Who Leave and Those Who Stay, The Story of a New Name. And then this is the rest of my fantasy. This is like my dipping my toes into fantasy, I call it, because I have a lot of random fantasy here. So starting on the right, actually, I've got the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson because I was looking up recommendations for non-spicy, really well-written fantasy with like good world building and just like a gifted writer. And this trilogy came super highly recommended, and it's actually on a lot of people's top favorite fantasy list. And so I thought if I'm going to start anywhere with fantasy, why not start with Brandon Sanderson? I also have another Brandon Sanderson book here, which is the Tess of the Emerald Sea. The next one I just got from a secondhand store, and it's obviously lost the dust cover, but this is The Order of Darkness, book 1, and it's called Changeling by Philippa Gregory. I don't know anything about it. It just had a pretty spine, like a pretty lilac spine, and I was like, you know what, it's the first book in obviously some sort of series, and I thought I would just read it and see if I liked it. I was just kind of like trying to get a few different fantasy. I don't want to buy too much fantasy because I might hate it for all I know. It is my least like anticipated genre. And if I don't like it, I will probably declutter my fantasy and like never pick them up again, but maybe I'll like them. This one here is The Queen of the Tearling by Erica Johansson. I heard this one was actually pretty good. And I also was looking up like fantasy recommendations, but that didn't have too much spice. So some of these might have some spice, but most of them I think don't. This one here I actually found at the secondhand store, and it just sounded really interesting. It's called A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. And it basically opens with like somebody discovering this really old leather-bound book in a library and it being very like immediately mysterious and interesting. And yeah, I just thought it might be kind of good. I have like a sort of fascination with like witches and the history of witches. I just find it so interesting, like the Salem witch trials and stuff like that. So there's something of old books and witchcraft that I just find really interesting to read about. Then we have Tess of the Emerald Sea, as I mentioned. Then we have Mortal Queens by Victoria McCombs. I don't know if I'm going to like it. Like this whole fantasy thing to me looks a little like almost cringe to me, I think, because it reminds me so much of like just super young people and book talk and like what's trending on book talk. And I feel like maybe with fantasy, it's like if you've read one, you've read them all. Am I wrong about that? I hope not. This one, I think I'm actually really looking forward to reading this one in the fall. This is Wayward by Amelia Hart. This one looks super cozy as well. It says, under cover of darkness, Kate flees London for Wayward Cottage, inherited from a great aunt she barely remembers. With its tumbling ivy and evergrown garden, the cottage is worlds away from the abusive partner who tormented her. She begins to suspect that her great aunt had a secret, one that lurks in the bones of the cottage, hidden ever since the witch hunts of the 17th century. Oh, it's just so like my kind of witchy book. And then I have, of course, the first book of the Hunger Games series, which I think is just a trilogy by Susanna Collins. I saw the Hunger Games movie, the first one, and really liked it. And I can only imagine how good the book would be if the movie was as good as it was. That whole premise is so fascinating to me. So I think I'm really going to like them. And I honestly wouldn't mind getting the rest of the series because I can see that being a series I actually would want to finish. So now we move on to the fourth shelf, sort of the middle of the bookcase. I'm just going to show you this one middle shelf here, which is above my Elena Ferrante series, because these are kind of a little bit more modern as well. And I don't know why I put them here, but they just looked really pretty sitting together on this shelf. So we have Donna Tartt's The Goldfinch. So in this case, I did not keep my Donna Tartt books together, but I just thought these looked really pretty here, especially with the flowers. Then I have North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. And I can't remember what that book is about, but I'm really excited to read that one. I do think that that one is actually a classic as well, if I'm not mistaken. And I have to say, I love this cover. Look at that cover. Absolutely beautiful. I'm really excited to read that book too, actually. It looks very cozy. Then I have Americana by, I'm not going to try to pronounce that name. I'm probably going to butcher it. This sounds like an incredible book, and I'm super, super excited to read it. But yeah, those are kind of like a couple more slightly more modern books that I just thought looked beautiful on this shelf. All right, this shelf, I have all of my Alexander Dumas, my Tolstoy, my Dostoevsky, and then I have a couple of other classics. And I actually have read like a few on the shelf. So starting off with this one here, this is How Much Land Does a Man Need? As you can see, I have annotated it. This is a very short story or novella. I guess it's a short story. You can read this in like one sitting. It's about essentially a man who it's never enough. Greed sort of takes over, and then he realizes that being greedy is not the answer, because life is very short. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about it. The next one is another Tolstoy, and this is Anna Karenina. I'm so excited to read Anna Karenina, actually, because it's so many people's favorite book. But it is a bit of a chunky book. I think it's going to take some time to read, but I'm just so, so excited. I have to say that I have found I really enjoy Tolstoy's writing, which is very refreshing because Dickens kind of scared me a little bit, but I really do enjoy Tolstoy's writing style. So I'm quite excited to read Anna Karenina. I also have The Death of Ivan Ilyich, which is also a short story. I read this about 3 days ago. Again, it's a super short story. You can read it in one sitting. This is about a man who dies rather young, and he kind of like has this existential crisis at the end of his life where he looks back and wonders if he made the right choices and lived the right kind of life. And it talks a lot about, I guess, things we think are important in life and things that really are important or aren't important, and people who think they're on the right path in life, but maybe they're not. And it is a little bit depressing. Like, it was kind of a depressing read, I will say that, but very easy to read. And I also think that the cover is very beautiful. Next, we have War and Peace. This is a bucket list book, but I wanted to keep it up here with my Tolstoys instead of down below with my other kind of bucket list books. But this is a book that I'm not going to read for a long time because I think it will take me a while, and I think it will also turn me off of reading if it's very difficult and challenging, which I have a feeling it might be. But this is a beautiful edition. This is the Oxford World Classic. And this is one of the translations that I think is very accessible. I did a little bit of research, and a lot of people say this is like one of the best translations to read. Now we have some Dostoevsky, and I've only read one Dostoevsky book. This is The Brothers Karamazov, and I'm very excited to read this one. I love anything to do with a little bit of like philosophy, and this sounds like an amazing story, but also with a lot of philosophy intertwined. So I'm just super excited. I think it's going to be a very impactful book. The next one is the only Dostoevsky that I have read, and this is White Nights. I'm not really a huge fan of this edition. This is just like a random Amazon edition. It even says that it was published by Amazon, and they spelled his name wrong, and there was also a typo in the book. So I would not recommend this version of this book. This was an okay story. Like, I wasn't super gripped by it, but it was easy to read, very, very short. I also don't like how like big the book is, that there's nothing written on the spine, but it was an okay book. But I'm definitely more interested in getting into Dostoevsky's other works. I also have The Idiot by Dostoevsky and Crime and Punishment. I am so excited to read Crime and Punishment. This is one of my most highly anticipated books in my entire collection. I think I'm going to love it, so I'm trying to leave it for a little while because this is essentially about a man who commits a certain crime, and then has to grapple with the guilt and the morality and paranoia and living with the fact that he's committed this certain crime. That's all I'm going to say. I know a lot of other people give a lot more spoilers than that, and chances are you know what the crime is that he committed, but that's all I'm going to say about that. But I'm just so excited to read that one. And this is also another one of my bucket list books that I think I'm going to absolutely love. I'm so excited. It's by Alexander Dumas, and this is The Count of Monte Cristo. This is on so many people's like top #1 books of all time. I'm super jazzed to read it, but look how big it is. It's extremely thick. It's extremely huge. By the way, I really like these Penguin Classic books. If you're looking for like really good editions, they're so like floppy and wonderful, and they just feel so good in your hands to hold, and I just love like how like floppy they are. Then I have a couple more classics. This here is from George Eliot. This is Middlemarch. I'm actually super excited to read this book as well. And then I have Wilkie Collins' The Woman in White, which I think is like the first true Gothic book ever written, and I'm really excited to read that one as well. So yeah, kind of random to have just like Eliot and Collins there beside my Tolstoy and my Alexander Dumas and my Dostoevsky. But yeah, so if any of you have read any of the books on this shelf, please tell me what was your favorite. And if you have read Crime and Punishment, The Count of Monte Cristo, The Brothers Karamazov, or War and Peace, or Anna Karenina, I feel like there's so many great classics on this shelf here. And then I just have like this little oil lamp, this little vintage oil lamp for decor. I thought it was very fitting for the time periods most of these books are set in. This next book is my horror/thriller, or this next shelf, I should say. And I don't have a whole lot of horror or thriller. And on here, I do have some more modern ones, and then I have some more that would be considered classics. So again, this is another genre that I don't really know if I'm going to love or not. Although I do really like, as I told you guys, a lot of movies that are horror/thriller. And again, I love anything like Mansion, Victorian, or just super creepy or paranormal. So I'm hoping that I like some of the books on the shelf, and I have a little bit of everything. So I do have some classics here. This is Coraline from Neil Gaiman. I haven't seen the movie. I think this is like a child's movie or something, or it's done in like a childish kind of way. I'm not really sure, but apparently it's quite horrific and chilling to read. So that's Coraline, which is obviously a classic. I have two from Shirley Jackson. I'm anticipating that Shirley Jackson will become a favorite author of mine just by her style of writing. I've read just a little bit of each of these books, and I just find her writing to be very accessible, and I definitely think I want to add more Shirley Jackson to my bookshelf. But this is The Haunting of Hill House, which again, and I feel like maybe I saw this a long time ago, but it was a really long time ago, so I don't really remember what happens, but the Victorian mansion vibes is everything for me. I think that's going to be really good for fall. And then I also have We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. And again, I love just the old creepy house vibes. Like if I can have a whole shelf full of just this type of book, that would just be the best thing for me ever. And then I also have The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. So this is a little bit more of like a thriller mystery, I think, which I've never seen the movie. I know there's a movie about it, and I've never read the book. I don't even really know what it's about, but I heard it's going to be really good. Then I have three kind of like dystopian ones that I guess I didn't really know where else to put them. I do have like other kind of dystopian ones up above, but I didn't really know where else to put these. But these are kind of like a little bit eerie/unsettling, I guess. Unsettling is the right word. This is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. I heard this is such a great book, and I'm really excited to read it. And then I have Margaret Atwood, The Handmaid's Tale. I just think there's, again, some trigger stuff in here. Yeah, some like stuff that might be really hard to read. So I want to read it, but I'm not looking forward to reading it, to be honest. But I feel like I might also really enjoy the story as well. Then I have this one. This is actually the one my boyfriend is reading right now. He borrowed this from my library, and this is Tender as the Flesh from Augustina Bazterrica, if I'm saying it properly. This is essentially like a dystopian futuristic novel that takes place in a time where they quit like butchering animals and started harvesting people. for meat, and they like promote it and stuff, and this is told from the perspective of somebody who works in one of the processing plants. So take that for what you will. The next one is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I have my one and only Agatha Christie. This is Death on the Nile. I feel like everybody needs an Agatha Christie book under their belt. I've never read anything by her, but I feel like out of all the mystery and like murder mystery, I feel like I definitely just have to experience her. Maybe it will be my thing, maybe it won't. I'm expecting it won't. Like, I'm not excited to read this, but I was like, I should just try it and see. Then I have The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. I don't remember what this is about, but I'm pretty sure this is like a rather eerie book. It says it is breathtakingly suspenseful and beautifully written. It's the story of a young woman plunged into a labyrinth where the secrets of her family's past connect to an inconceivable evil. The dark 15th century reign of Vlad the Impaler and a time-defying pact that may have kept his awful work alive through the ages. The search for the truth becomes an adventure of monumental proportions, taking us from monasteries and dusty libraries to the capitals of Eastern Europe. Yeah, sounds good. And then I have a couple of Stephen King, just to get my feet wet with Stephen King. We have Pet Sematary, which is Stephen King's self-professed most creepy book he's ever written, or scariest book. I actually started reading The Shining, but again, I was reading it on my Kobo and I never finished it because I couldn't be bothered to read on an e-reader. Like, I just didn't enjoy it as much as real books. But yeah, I'm kind of excited to read this. I think this is like kind of a disturbing book, though. It's not so much scary, I don't think, as it is like disturbing. And then I have Stephen King's The Stand. I think this is about like post-apocalyptic times when a plague has overtaken the world and killed most of the people or something. I can't quite remember, but that's a very big, chunky Stephen King book, but it sounds like something I would like to read. And then I have what will quite possibly be the scariest book I ever read, The Exorcist. I'm very nervous to read this because I'm a very easily scared person. I saw the original movie of this, and I don't remember like if it was really scary to me or not, but I saw The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and that scared the heck out of me. And I also, like, my scariest movies to date are like the Paranormal Activity movies. So anything paranormal like that, or like demon possession, like weird stuff happening in houses and spirits and noises in the night, like that stuff creeps me out. So I think that's going to be a great one to read around Halloween. So that is my murder, mystery, scary, horror / sort of unsettling or like dystopian, I guess, shelf. But the ones I'm most excited to read, honestly, probably The Exorcist, because I think it's going to be really scary, and also my Shirley Jackson novel. And now we have the last two like tiers of my bookshelves, and these are more of my classics / cozy books / books I have read a lot of already and have really enjoyed, and classics I want to read very soon. Very highly anticipated authors, and just a lot of books that I'm just super, super excited to read, as well as a little further over to my right is like my stereotypical classic, which has a lot of the classic lit that like everyone recommends. So I feel like I need to read it. But let's start with the shelf. This is what I call my cozy shelf, but it's also my L.M. Montgomery shelf. So starting over, well, first of all, in the center of the shelf, I have this silver plated zinc comb. And this is an antique comb I got from a secondhand store for $6. And it's real silver plated and it's just beautiful. And I just thought that it kind of suited the vibes of the shelf. So here we have Heidi from Joanna Spyri. This is a book that I read as a child. I'm pretty sure I remember reading Heidi as a child, and it's just got such cozy vibes for me. I also really love the art on the front of this book. And I'm really big into nostalgic reads. I love reads that take me back to my childhood or make me feel sort of like Anne of Green Gables, Road to Avonlea, Little House on the Prairie. Those kind of vibes, or like spending time in my grandmother's antique cottage on the family acreage. Those kind of vibes. The next one's actually a special book. This is Snow and Rose by Emily Winfield Martin. This is a fantasy kind of book, actually. So I was debating whether I should put it in my fantasy section, but this one is kind of special to me because my grandma used to read this book to me when I was a kid. And this is kind of like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs kind of vibes, but this is the story of Snow and Rose, who are two sisters. And I don't remember much about it. I think I'm going to read it either in the spring or maybe in the fall. But it is so cozy, you guys. I have very vivid memories of my grandmother reading this book to me as a child. I wish I had the exact one that she read to me. But it's also illustrated, and it's just wonderfully illustrated. And it basically starts out with the two sisters laying in bed in this old peaked roof cottage with a little beeswax candle going, and the one sister asks the other sister to tell her the story of their lives. I don't know, just reminds me of my childhood, so I'm really excited to read that one again, and I wonder how much I'm going to remember from my childhood. Then I have two editions of The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett, which is again a child's book. Like it's written for children, but I think you can read it at any age, and it's just super cozy vibes. So I've got this one here, which this is a paperback. This is a secondhand one that I got from the secondhand bookstore. And I really wanted like a paperback to read because I enjoy reading paperback more than hardcover. But this one here is a hardcover one that I couldn't pass up because it's illustrated, and it's a very beautiful illustrated version. So we've got two of The Secret Garden, and then over on the right is my Ella Montgomery / anything to do with, Anne of Green Gables. So Anne of Green Gables, like, I know there's a lot of young people who are just discovering the series, and I actually have such strong ties to Anne of Green Gables because I used to watch that actual show with my mother, like when it was on television. My mom and I would watch it, and my grandma, and I just loved this series. And I started reading the book actually when I was on vacation last year in Mexico, which is like a strange beach read, but that's just what I started reading, and I just loved it. It was so calming and cozy. I loved the writing. I loved the story. I vividly remember all the stuff happening in the book that happened in the TV show, and they did such a good job with the TV adaptation. So it starts off, unfortunately, not with an L.M. Montgomery book, but this is by Sarah McCoy. This is a more modern, like a more recently written book, but this is Marilla of Green Gables. So this is imagining Marilla's life before Anne of Green Gables. And if you guys don't know, Marilla is the lady that Anne moves in with. But this is just such cozy vibes, and I really love the art on the front of this book. So I'm hoping that the writing is similar to the way Ella Montgomery writes, because I just really loved her writing. And then I have Anne of Green Gables, and this is a vintage secondhand edition that I got from my local bookstore, and isn't it beautiful? I just love the art on the front of this book. It's so pretty, and I love the colors. I love that it's green, and this is just gorgeous. Anne of Green Gables is one of those stories that I love so much. The story and the characters and the era and everything about it, the vibes are so, I love them so much that this is the type of book I could see having multiple editions just because I love it so much. This one and Little Women, I think I'm going to end up with numerous editions. And then I have Anne of Green Gables and Anne of Avonlea, which this is a pretty little book, but I kind of wish that they were in two separate books. But so this is the first story and the second, like this first book and the second book. Yeah, I wish, like I said, that this was just its own book. So I may end up selling these versions and getting like just the individual stories. And then this is Anne of the Island and Anne of Windy Poplars. It's very pretty. Like, I guess I could just read it like this too. But I'm really excited to read that. I think that's really pretty. Then I have the fifth book in the series, which is Anne's House of Dreams. And yes, this is also my House of Dreams. They should have called this Alethea's House of Dreams, because this is, yeah, exactly the type of house I want to live in. I want the garden, I want the dress, I want the house, I want everything about this. It is so pretty. Then I have the sixth book in the series, which is Anne of Ingleside. This one is thrifted. Then I have Rainbow Valley, which is, I guess, after Anne has her children. And then I also have Rilla of Ingleside, and I believe Rilla is the name that Anne gives her daughter when she has her daughter, and this is a hardcover. I wish it was a paperback, but that's okay. So that is all of my Anne of Green Gables / cozy books, although truth be told, lots of other books from the classic literature are very, very cozy, like Little Women. Yeah, I find Jane Austen to be very cozy, and yeah, so there's more, but this is kind of like my House of Dreams shelf. This is another very cozy shelf to me, and also I think has what I think are going to be some of my favorite books / favorite authors, and also some of my current already favorite books. So on the right, I have my Bronte sisters. So I do have Jane Eyre from Charlotte Bronte, and I love this book. This was one of the very first classic books I read. I read this a year and a half ago in the summertime, and I fell in love with it. Quite a long book. And it was a little bit challenging to me because of the type of writing and just the way it was written, the style of English and the style of writing, because this was literally written, I think, 150 years ago. And so it definitely was a little bit more challenging, but just such a beautiful book. And I absolutely love the art on the cover. I love like the girl on the front. I love the forlorn look on her face. She looks very simple, but very pretty, and sitting beside the rose bush. And just one of my favorite stories of all time. Such a good introduction to the Bronte sisters and such a good introduction to classic literature for me. I highly, highly recommend this book. I just love it. And very Gothic, like very Gothic vibes, creepy vibes, old vibes, cozy, fall, autumnal. And then I have from Anne Bronte, The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. I'm also very, very excited to read this one. This one I think is going to be really good for fall as well. Then I have a book which is really popular on YouTube right now, which is Wuthering Heights from Emily Bronte. Apparently the new movie that came out is not very good. I have to say that most movie adaptations of shows just do not capture the books very well. So yeah, I will not be seeing the movie, but I think the book is going to be great. And I also really like the art on the front of this book. So I'm really excited to read this book. I think there's a lot of people who like saw the movie in theaters and then went and read the book, and they're like, I don't understand why everyone likes this. A lot of Gen Z people saying it's hard to read and how could anyone like this. I think that's honestly because they're expecting it to be like a contemporary love story, and it's not that. So unfortunately, sometimes movies make you think stories are going to be something different than what they really are. Then we have Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte, and I'm really excited to read this book as well. This is actually one of my most highly anticipated books. I love the art on the cover. I love that it's green, and I'm just super excited to read this one as well. And then I have Violet, which I actually forgot that I had, but I'm really excited to read this story as well. This one's a little bit longer, and this one is also by Charlotte Bronte, so if it's anything like the writing in Jane Eyre, I think I'm gonna really, really like it. So those are my Bronte sisters. I think there's definitely some more books by the Bronte sisters that I would like to add, because this is just my favorite type of writing. I really loved the writing style of Charlotte. I love the time era that it's set in. I have this 150th anniversary illustrated edition of Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. This is just such a beautiful book. I love like the powder blue. I wasn't going to keep it because I do have another version of Little Women, which is I think I have the Penguin Classics edition, and it's just much more comfortable to hold in my hands and read. But this is just such a pretty book that I couldn't say no. And like I said, there's going to be, I think, a few books on my shelf that I end up loving so much, or certain authors that I wouldn't mind having more than one edition or collecting different editions of that story. And I am currently reading Little Women, and I'm absolutely in love with it. I'm about halfway through, and I just love it. So super cozy, and I also really like Louisa May Alcott's writing style. This is the edition that I'm currently reading. This is the Penguin Classics. And the illustration that's on here is an original illustration from, I think, like, I can't find it, but anyways, this is like an old original illustration, and I just think it's so pretty. I just love it. So, and I have lots of annotations, and yeah, that's how far I am through the book. And I'm actually just using some annotation tabs as a bookmark right now because it's just easy. And this is such a beautiful, special book that this is the type of book, this is what I mean when I say like the type of book that I like to annotate, because there's so much beauty in these books. Same with Jane Eyre, by the way. I had annotated my original Jane Eyre. This is not the original book that I read. That book got destroyed, unfortunately, so I have it back, and I'm definitely going to reread this and re-annotate. Then beside that, I also have another Louisa May Alcott book, and this is a book that I've not heard anybody talk about. This is A Long and Fatal Love Chase, and I think this is about a woman who is like on an island or something, and then she meets this man, and he's not, maybe isn't the best person for her to be with or something, and I don't really remember what it's all about, but I just really love Louisa May Alcott's style of writing. Also the edges are pink, which is kind of interesting, and it's just like a really pretty book to have on my bookshelf. So I really find Louisa May Alcott's writing style to be very approachable, and so I definitely want to add more of her to my bookshelf. Then beside that, I have two kind of random classics. This is Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. This is also another sort of a bucket list book because it's really big, and I think it's going to take me a long time to read. And then I also have Rebecca from Daphne du Maurier, which I just read I think I read it in December. I pretty much flew through this book, and the only problem is I also saw the movie, and I actually forgot that I had seen the movie. And so partway through the book, I was like, this is sounding really familiar. And then I remembered that I had seen the movie, and then it kind of ruined it for me because then I knew how it ended. And I really don't like the ending, I will say. I think just because in the movie I didn't like the ending. I also have to say I didn't love some of the characters in this book, but I will save that for more of like a review when I talk about it at some point in the future. But everything else about it, I loved. Like, I loved Daphne du Maurier's writing style. I loved the time era that it took place in. I loved like the Gothic sort of mansion vibes, the creepiness, the descriptions, and the whole thing was like perfectly autumnal and perfectly uneasy and perfectly Gothic. And I just loved it. My type of book, 100%. There is a book that I want to read. I think it's called The Turn of the Screw. And I think it has similar vibes. It's about like a house, and there's like a governess who goes to stay in the house, and the kids are being haunted by spirits or something like that. And then we come to my, what I would call stereotypical classic shelf. So there's a lot on here that's just like, it's here because it's a classic, but there's actually some that I'm very excited to read, and there's a couple that I'm not so excited to read. And there's some that I have read. So we have Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I did read this, actually, not this exact book. It was a different version. And it was good. It's very philosophical. It was a short, relatively easy read. Then I have Swiss Family Robinson, which is about a family, I think, who gets stranded on a desert island, or on an island. And I think this is like intended to be like a children's book. But I remember seeing a movie adaptation when I was a child and loved it. And I think I actually read a book. I think I actually read like the children's version of Robinson Crusoe and loved it. So I love this whole like premise of like being stuck on an island, stranded, shipwrecked. I'm really excited to read that. And this is obviously a vintage, older book that I thrifted from a secondhand store. We have Walt Whitman, Leaves of Grass. I'm not really into poetry, but I feel like this is just a must read, and I thrifted that book as well. I have one book from Rainer Maria Rilke, and that is The Dark Interval, Letters on Loss, Grief, and Transformation. Again, I feel like I might struggle with this book a little bit just because it is about death and dying and existentialism and grief, and I struggle with those kind of books. But I think it will also be a really good book to read, and I think there will be a time and a place when I should read this. I also have Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I have seen part of the movie and like didn't love the movie. My boyfriend's obsessed with the movie, but I think the book is going to be much better than the movie as well. I also have Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, which is a sort of dystopian book about when books are banned. And then I also have one from Franz Kafka, which is Metamorphosis, which is about this man who wakes up one day and he is a bug. The next one I have is The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I don't know if I'm saying that properly, The Little Prince. This one, so many people say is such a good book, so I think I'm really looking forward to reading that one. I have Journey to the Center of the Earth. I have James Herriot, All Creatures Great and Small, which is about a veterinarian who goes to farms and looks after animals, and it's his tales of looking after animals as a vet. I also have randomly one of my Penguin classics here, which I think would look nicer on my other shelf, but it's a Thomas Hardy and it's sort of random, so I just stuck it here. And this is Tess of the D'Urbervilles. I started reading this. I am about 25% of the way through, and this was one of the first classics I started reading, and I think I just wasn't super into it at the time, so I DNF'd it, but I also wasn't really dedicating a lot of time to reading, so this just never got finished, but I definitely do want to finish that one. I also have The Mayor of Casterbridge, also by Thomas Hardy. This is just a little small thrifted book. I also have Greyfriars Bobby by Eleanor Atkinson, and I think this is about a man and his dog, and I can't remember what all else it's about, but I think it's going to be sad because I think it's about a dog, and I'm just like, now that I have dogs, anything to do with dogs and like dogs potentially not living or like people leaving their dogs or vice versa just breaks my heart, so I'm kind of nervous to read that one. This is Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Rice, and this is a imagining of the crazy woman in the attic who is in Jane Eyre. So Mr. Rochester's first wife. This is about her. So I'm really excited to read this one, actually. I've heard really good things about it. Then I have The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux, and this is a really beautiful edition. Such a pretty little book. These are not my favorite books to read, but it's got like the golden edges, and I am excited to read this one because I know a lot of people really love this book. J.L. Carr, A Month in the Country. James Baldwin, Giovanni's Room, which I've heard really good things about. The Great Gatsby, of course, by F. Scott Fitzgerald. The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. This would be my first and only Nathaniel Hawthorne book that I have. Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. I feel like this should have been required reading for me in school, but I don't think we read it. Also lots of trigger warnings, I think, with that one. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, which I did read in school, but I would really like to reread it. William Golding, Lord of the Flies, which is obviously a stereotypical like must-read classic. But again, it has that like stranded on an island idea that I find really fascinating. Virginia Woolf, The Waves. I don't really know if this is going to be my cup of tea. I kind of read like the first page or so of it and I wasn't super into it, but I think a lot of people really like that one. So Mrs. Dalloway, I'm excited to read this one, but some people say it is overhyped. But I've never read anything from Virginia Woolf. Mikhail Bulgakov's The Master and Margarita. I've heard this is such an incredible, interesting book. This is kind of a bucket list book for me as well. I'm going to save it for a while. Then I have two editions that I don't really love. I got these from, I think, HomeSense, and I really don't like these editions, but The Wonderful Wizard of Oz and The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So if I can get them replaced at some point, I will. I also have George Orwell's 1984, which I read most of a couple years ago when I first started getting into reading, and I DNF'd it, not because it wasn't a good book, but because I just wasn't dedicating enough time to reading, and I lost interest because in a nutshell, I needed to reduce screen time and I was having trouble concentrating on anything because I was so addicted to my phone. So great book. I need to finish it. And then back here I have Dante's The Divine Comedy, which is actually my boyfriend's book. Yeah, like old poetry and me is like, it's like Shakespeare to me. It just is, I find it very, very hard to get into and hard to read, but I feel like maybe one day I will read it. Directly above that, I have just a couple of other sort of classic books that a few of them are kind of like have this uneasy feeling about them, or just like random, I guess. So the very first one on the top is John Williams' Stoner. I have heard such good things about this book. I also have Perfume from Patrick Suskind. This sounds like a really, really interesting book, and I'm actually really excited to read that one. I guess it's about a perfumer who's like obsessed with creating one specific type of perfume, and he will go to no end to be able to create that perfume, and that's all I'll say. We have Lolita from Vladimir Nabokov. This has like, people love it and hate it. Like it's about a relationship between a much younger girl and a much older man, apparently, but I guess beautifully written. So I kind of still want to read it, even though I feel like it's like sensitive topic. I also have The Stranger from Albert Camus. I heard this is really good. I also have Nausea from Jean-Paul Sartre. I think this is like kind of a hard or like uneasy kind of a read. And then I also have The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. I'm actually so excited to read this book. It's about a man who is of African-American descent, and I don't know actually what happens, but he like living through life as somebody who is not really seen in society or discriminated against because of his skin color. So yeah, those books I'm really excited to read. And then here I just have this little like creamer dish or gravy bowl, I'm not sure which it is, and I just have some bookmarks. So we're kind of at a weird angle because this is my top shelf now. This is my Jane Austen shelf. It's a little bit bare because I don't have a lot of Jane Austen on here, and also I feel like I need a little bit of decor in the center, but this was kind of just what I threw together the other night. And Jane Austen is an author that I feel like I will eventually have lots of different lots of different editions of her books. But I have read Pride and Prejudice, so I have just some pearls, and this is one of the, I can't remember, the Heritage, I'm not sure, or what the heck, I can't remember the name of this edition, but these are such beautiful editions. I really want to get more books in these editions. They're so pretty. And as you can see, I have tons of annotations, and I really enjoyed Pride and Prejudice. I also saw the movie, and I really loved the movie, actually. I thought they did a really good job, but of course the books are always better. And then I just have some pearls just for decor. And then I also have Emma, which I have not read yet. Sorry, that was totally out of focus. I have Emma, which I have not read yet. Love the art on the front of this book. I've heard that a lot of people really love Emma. They either love Pride and Prejudice or they love Emma. I also have Persuasion, Mansfield Park, Northanger Abbey, which I'm actually really excited to read. I think this is going to be such a nice autumnal book, good for fall. And then I also have Sense and Sensibility. So those are my Austen books, and the only one I have read so far is Pride and Prejudice, and I think my next one will probably be Northanger Abbey. And we have my last shelf, which is good because my battery is getting low, and these are some of my most anticipated to be read, or books I have actually read and really loved. So starting on the left, we have Charlotte Perkins Gilman, The Yellow Wallpaper. I loved this book. I actually had tons of annotations, and my dog ate it. Literally, my new puppy destroyed that book. This book really resonated with me because it's about women's mental health, and I struggle with PMDD, and the woman in this story had postpartum depression, and it was like she took the words out of my head and put them on paper. I related to her so much in this story. We also have Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which I did read, and I loved this book. However, this again is without all of my annotations and all of my highlighting because my dog ate my other copy. So I will reread that anyway because I absolutely loved it. That was one of the best books I've ever read. I absolutely loved hearing about the experience of the wretch in the book. I also have John Steinbeck's East of Eden, which I'm super excited to read. This is, again, kind of a bucket list book that I'm going to save for later, even though I'm super excited to read it. I also have The Grapes of Wrath, which is about the Great Depression. I also have John Steinbeck's The Winter of Our Discontent. It just sounds kind of hopelessly romantic and sad and melancholy and cozy somehow. And my last Steinbeck is The Pearl. I also have Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray. I did read this book as well. It was one of the first classics I read, and I really enjoyed it. I had a different edition though, which I no longer have, but this one is the Penguin Classics, and I definitely will be rereading this, and I really love the Penguin Classics edition. I also have from Alexandre Dumas Phil, Camille, just such a pretty, cute little romantic looking book. I also have another Ella Montgomery, The Blue Castle, and I don't have it with my Anne of Green Gables because I just thought it looked like a nice standalone book, so I have it up here with some other highly anticipated reads. I also love the art on the front. And then I also have Elizabeth von Arnim, The Enchanted April. I'm super excited to read this one, and I absolutely love the art on the front of this book. I also have E.M. Forster, A Room with a View, E.M. Forster, A Passage to India, and then I have some Hemingway, which I'm very excited to read. I have The Sun Also Rises, I have A Movable Feast, and A Farewell to Arms, and I'm super excited to read this book, but I've heard really good things about A Movable Feast, but I still really want to read this one first, I think. So I kind of sped through those last few books because my battery is dying and we're also running out of daylight, but now it is a little bit more warm and cozy, and now you can really see the vibes of the fireplace and the candles and how cozy it really looks in here. So sitting from my chair, this is my view. I've got my book that I'm currently reading, which is Little Women. I've got all my knitting stuff. my plant, my beautiful bookshelf. But yeah, that about does it for my home library and sharing with you guys some of the books that I've already read. I hope that you guys really enjoyed hearing my thoughts on these books. Please leave any book recommendations down below for me. And hopefully this video wasn't too long or too chatty, but I know I myself love to listen to good long book tours, bookshelf tours. And hopefully we have a similar, I was going to say reading style. Hopefully we have similar tastes. And I would love to hear any recommendations. If you see anything, especially classic literature, anything that is not on the shelf, or any books that give those kind of creepy old Victorian mansion vibes, definitely let me know. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys all very soon in my next one. Bye for now.